So you might be looking at the 10-6 notes and saying, why on earth are they so short? Well, here's why. There's no real way to do these other than trial and error, sadly. But now the difference with this section and the last section is now we're going to have a number in front of that x squared. So a is not going to equal 1. You notice that there's a number in front of all of these x squareds. Okay, so we're still going to do the same sort of rules, but it's going to get a little tricky. First, always check for a GCF, a greatest common factor. If you do that, it can make your life a whole lot easier because you might actually be able to divide out the number in front of x squared, and then you can factor it the old way. But for the first one, 3, -10, -8. There's nothing other than 1 that goes into it. So I'm going to go straight to some parentheses. Now, 3x squared. My options for 3 are just 1 and 3. I like to put the bigger number first. It does not really matter. So 3x times x will give me 3x squared. Now, here's the tricky part. The two numbers that I pick for 8 are not going to give me 10 because this 3 messes that up. So we're going to have to check by foiling, but not really the whole thing. So my numbers for 8 are 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. So I could try 1 and 8. Now you check your inner and your outer. So this gave me a 1 and that gives me 24. These are the numbers that are going to try to make that 10. Can 1 and 24 make 10? No. So here comes the trial and error part. Now, I can switch them, 8 and 1. That gives me 8, and these give me 3. 8 and 3 give me 11 or 5, not 10, but it's close. So I know it's not going to be 8 and 1. Okay, so now it's got to be 2 and 4. So let's do a 2 and a 4. That gives me 2. That gives me 12. Can 2 and 12 give me a -10? They absolutely can. Now, I'm going to show you something weird in a second. But how do I get a -10? Well, I can do a -12 plus 2. So the 2 has to be positive, and the numbers that make 12 have to be negative. So let's show you something, because you might say, well, I found another option. I did this. The 4 here and the 2 here. And I said, well, 4 and 6 also give me 10. But in order to get a -10, these would both have to be negative, and -4 times -2 is a +8, but I need a -8. So this does not work. Your signs have to work. So again, it's just trial and error, which is why there's no real notes for this. So let's try another one. Okay, so 2 parentheses. I could do 6 and 1, or I can do 3 and 2. Because I'm trying to get a number 1 in the middle here, I'm going to pick numbers that are closer together. So let's do 3x and 2x. 35, I can do 1 and 35, or 5 and 7. I'm going to try 5 and 7. So let's do 5 here, 7 here. That gives me a 10 and a 21. Okay, that does not give me 1. But what if I switch them? Can I make this smaller? Yeah. Okay. So let's switch those. And let's put the 7 here and the 5 here. Now that gives me 14 and 15. Oh, that will give me a 1. Yay! So I need to do a +15 minus 14. So that means the 14 has to be the negative, and the 15 is the positive. Now check your signs. -7 times +5 will give me a -35. So we are done. You might get lucky. You might stumble upon it on the first try. Now let's take a look at the last one. 8, 2, and 36. 2 goes into all of those. So I'm going to go ahead and divide out a 2. Okay, now I'm going to factor what's left. I have to keep this 2 here because I want my answer to multiply out to be the original problem. And if I ditch that 2, my answer won't check. So what's going to make 4? Let's do 4 and 1. And 18 could be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, or 3 and 6. I'm going to try 2 and 9. Now, here's a little time-saving trick. If I want to do 2 and 9, I can't put the 4 and the 2 together because they have something that goes into both of those. And if there's anything that goes into both numbers, you can't put them in the same parentheses. Whoops. So I'm going to switch those two. I'm going to put the 9 here and the 2 here. That gives me 9 and 8, and I'm trying to get a -1, and that'll work. I need a -9 plus 8. So the 9 is negative, that's positive. Everything, including the 2, is my answer. So again, I'm sorry, there's no great way to do this. You just have to fill everything in, and you just check the O and the I part of FOIL. You don't have to check all of it. But just check them and make sure your signs work for everything. Sorry, that was our answer over here. Okay, and that's 10-6.